The cake struck her face with brutal force, and laughter erupted across the hall. Frosting smeared her gown, whispers rippled, and her ex-husband stood smirking, convinced he had destroyed her in front of everyone. But Naomi didn't flinch. She reached calmly into her purse, pulling out papers no one expected. In that instant, the celebration shifted into a battleground, and the man who came to humiliate her had no idea his own empire was seconds away from collapse. This is the story of a bride silenced until she unleashed the truth. Welcome, story lovers. Where are you watching from? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. The hall shimmered with golden lights, a glow that made everything feel like a dream. Crystal chandeliers dangled above, casting a soft brilliance on the white roses that lined every table. Guests whispered with excitement, their eyes fixed on the bride as she glided through the room. For Naomi, this was more than just a wedding. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one she had fought hard to reach. Born into a world where her skin color often defined how others treated her, Naomi had grown used to carrying herself with quiet dignity. She excelled in her career, built a reputation for resilience, and learned never to let society's prejudices dim her spirit. Standing there in her ivory gown, surrounded by family and friends, she radiated strength. Her new husband, Marcus, looked at her with pride. This was supposed to be her moment of joy, untouched by the shadows of the past. But not everyone in that room shared in her happiness. Somewhere among the clinking glasses and polite applause, a tension lingered, unspoken but heavy. Naomi's ex-husband, David, was known for his arrogance, his obsession with control, and his refusal to accept their separation. In the years since their divorce, he had built himself a fortune, but wealth had only deepened his bitterness. And though he hadn't been invited, whispers suggested he might appear, unwilling to let her happiness exist without his shadow. Naomi brushed off the thought. Tonight, she told herself, was hers. She had endured too much to let fear spoil her celebration. The laughter of her guests wrapped around her like a shield, and the music filled the air with promise. Still, deep inside, an unease stirred, the kind that creeps in when you sense the calm before a storm. She didn't know it yet, but before the night ended, that storm would break in the most humiliating, public way imaginable. And while the world would think she had been disgraced, Naomi had prepared for this moment in ways no one could have predicted. The music swelled, glasses clinked, and the atmosphere brimmed with warmth. Naomi smiled, receiving congratulations from relatives who had flown across states to witness her second chance at love. For a woman who had endured years of controlling words and veiled insults from her ex-husband, this wedding was her victory. Every detail, the handcrafted centerpieces, the towering cake, the string quartet, reflected not only elegance, but also resilience. But beneath the glittering surface of the evening, the undercurrent of unease lingered. Naomi's closest friends noticed how her gaze sometimes flicked toward the entrance, as if bracing for something. Marcus gently squeezed her hand, assuring her that nothing could spoil this day. And for a while it seemed genuine. The dance floor buzzed with life, children twirled in circles of laughter, and photographers captured smiles that seemed untouched by worry. Then it happened. The grand doors at the back of the hall creaked open, not the quiet slip of a late guest, but the bold entrance of someone who wanted to be seen, David. Tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a designer suit that screamed wealth, he walked in with an expression carved from arrogance. Conversations faltered. The quartet stumbled over a note. All eyes turned to him. Naomi's heart tightened, but she stood tall. She had expected this. David thrived on control, and tonight he wasn't here to congratulate her. He was here to reclaim the power he believed was his. He didn't need an invitation. His presence alone was a statement. He moved through the room with deliberate slowness, acknowledging no one, as if the celebration itself was beneath him. A few guests whispered in disapproval, but many others watched silently, their curiosity stronger than their conscience. Naomi could feel the weight of every stare pressing down on her. Then came the moment that turned the air heavy with shock. David approached the towering wedding cake, a three-tiered masterpiece of delicate artistry, its centerpiece symbolizing new beginnings. Without warning, his hand plunged forward, seizing the cake with violent force. Gasps filled the room as he lifted a chunk and, with a smirk of cruel satisfaction, smashed it across Naomi's face. The silence that followed was deafening. Cream and frosting dripped down her gown, staining the lace that had taken months to choose. Naomi stood frozen, her face smeared, her dignity under attack in front of everyone she loved. And then, like a cruel chorus, laughter rippled through the crowd, not from everyone, but from enough people to cause significant harm. Some laughed nervously, others genuinely entertained, as though a black woman's humiliation was acceptable. Entertainment at a celebration meant to honor her. Marcus rushed forward, but Naomi lifted her hand slightly, stopping him. Her calmness unsettled the room more than the act itself. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't crumble under the weight of public disgrace. She stood there, her eyes steady, her breathing controlled, as if she had been waiting for this moment. David's smirk widened. To him it was victory. To the guests it was a spectacle. To Naomi it was confirmation that the storm she had sensed all night had finally broken. Yet what no one in that room realized, not David, not the guests, not even Marcus, was that Naomi wasn't unprepared. Behind that calm exterior lay a secret she had been carrying, a plan designed for this very moment. While the crowd thought the cake was the end of her dignity, it was only the beginning of David's downfall, because in just a matter of hours, the empire he had built on lies and cruelty would begin to crumble, piece by piece, contract by contract, until nothing was left, and Naomi would be the one holding the match. The room still buzzed with uneasy laughter, whispers twisting into cruel amusement. Naomi stood motionless, cake dripping down her gown, while David basked in the chaos he had created. He believed he had won, that once again he had stripped her of dignity. But Naomi's silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Slowly, she reached for her purse, set carefully at the edge of the bridal table. The crowd watched with curiosity, some expecting tissues, others imagining she would retreat in shame. Instead, she pulled out a sleek leather folder. Her hands didn't tremble, her eyes didn't waver. She opened it and laid out a series of documents on the tablecloth right in front of David. His smirk faltered. The papers bore seals, signatures, and logos from government agencies and banks. Naomi had spent months gathering proof of his corruption, shell companies, tax evasion, fraudulent contracts. She hadn't just prepared for tonight. She had built her case meticulously, waiting for the moment when his arrogance would expose him. Guests leaned closer, confusion spreading like wildfire. Phones flashed as people snapped pictures of the documents. Naomi lifted her chin, her calm presence contrasting with David's sudden unease. He reached forward to snatch the papers, but Marcus stepped between them, blocking him. And then the sound that shifted everything. The doors burst open again. This time, uniformed officers entered, scanning the room before locking eyes on David. The empire he thought untouchable was already collapsing, and the downfall had begun in the very place he tried to disgrace her. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. Chaos spread through the wedding hall as the officers stepped forward, their presence silencing even the cruelest laughter. David's face, once smug with triumph, turned pale. He stammered denials, insisting it was a mistake, but the evidence Naomi had revealed left no room for escape. In minutes, the man who had walked in with arrogance was being escorted out, his empire crumbling faster than he could comprehend. Naomi stood tall, her gown still streaked with frosting, but her dignity intact. In fact, she radiated a strength so profound that guests who had laughed moments earlier now hung their heads in shame. They had witnessed not just an act of humiliation, but the power of a woman who refused to be broken. The celebration resumed, but it was no longer just about marriage. It had become a testimony, a story of justice unfolding in real time. Naomi's new husband stood by her side with pride, but it was her composure, her foresight, that became the true centerpiece of the night. For Naomi, this wasn't simply about revenge. It was about reclaiming the respect that had been denied to her for years, not only by David, but by a world that too often mocked or dismissed women like her. Her calm defiance turned what should have been her lowest moment into the turning point of her life. And beyond that wedding hall, her story echoed louder. It asked an unsettling question. How many times must black women endure public humiliation, dismissed as spectacles, before the world acknowledges their strength, their resilience, and their right to dignity? This was more than a ruined cake. It was the collapse of arrogance and the rise of justice. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories.